Hello, I'd like to show you how to do ribbon insertion. Now, ribbon insertion is this skill going around the edge of the board. I'll just lift it up a little bit so you can see it better. There you go. And it's to give the effect of ribbon, and the ribbon loops in and out of the paste. So it's to give the impression that a piece of ribbon is going around the cake. And obviously on here we're just going to put it on the board so you can learn how to make this, how to do ribbon insertion, and you learn how to do that skill. Okay, so what we need to do, so this can be used on any sort of cakes. And years ago we used to do ribbon insertion, but instead of making our ribbon out of paste, it used to be made out of ribbon. So we used to cut ribbon into strips and place it on each side of the sugar paste to make it look like the ribbon is going in and out of the cake. Now obviously the things have changed and things have moved on, and ribbon insertion cannot now be done with real ribbon because it's not edible. Definitely make it with paste. Okay. So what equipment have I got? I've got a ruler. You do need a ruler that will help you measure. A knife. Your I'm not really sure what this knife's called. Big chopping knife. Rolling pin. Icing sugar. And I've got just a board and a piece of dowel. So the dowel is to dry the ribbon insertion pieces over until they're dry. So although it gives the impression of the ribbon going up underneath the paste and back up again, we're actually going to make them in sections, and when they're dry, place those into the paste. A bit of an illusion. To keep the dowel from moving, I'm just going to put a little bit of paste underneath the dowel, and that will stop it rolling as you're working. Okay. Now you can make ribbon insertion loops using just sugar paste, but sugar paste is quite soft and obviously it wouldn't dry very hard. What you can do is put some gum tragacanth into it, and that's fine, but I find the best thing to use is flour paste. So I've got a third flour paste, 2/3 sugar paste, and I'm going to mix those together. Now you know flour paste dries hard-ish. Well, it dries very hard, and it will help this paste to dry hard when it's mixed together and it's dry. But there's an other reason I use flour paste, and that's the reason is it rolls out nice and thin. So the paste rolls nice and thin, gives you a very professional look to your work. Okay, so give it a good mix. Now I've got quite a lot here. You don't need this much for this will do probably a 3-tier cake, because we're going to roll it a little bit thinner. Okay, give it a good mix. Obviously, always in a plastic bag. Always keep our paste in a plastic bag. Okay, I've just got a little bit of sugar paste on my hands. I'll just get rid of that before I carry on. Right. So I'm taking a piece of this paste and I'm going to roll it out nice and thin. Now because it's got the flour paste in, it's that little bit stretchy. It's nicer to roll out. It will help the paste be rolled out a lot finer and make it look a lot nicer. If you just use sugar paste by itself, it will be quite chunky. Just rubbing off any icing sugar I've got on there, and especially if I'm using any of the darker colours like dark blue or red, black, you've just got to be careful if the icing sugar will take the colour away. It will make the sugar paste look duller as well. So you can see I've got a nice piece there of thin sugar paste mixed with flour paste. Okay, if I cut the edge off, you'll probably be able to see how fine it is. Okay, really nice and fine. Now, it's better not to roll out too much in one go because it does dry out quite quickly. The reason I'm using this knife and not a small knife is because if you rock the knife, it will give you a nice cut. Okay. If you use this knife and you drag it along, you'll probably misshape the sugar paste. So I'm just making sure that that's nice and level. Okay. Now I want to talk to you about the size of the ribbon insertion. The size of the ribbon insertion for this one that I've just shown you is 1/2 centimetre width, and the length of it would be 1.5 centimetres. But I'll double check on that actually when I do it. Now, it can be larger. So if your design on your cake, calls for a big chunky ribbon, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. You would just need to cut the ribbon sections out larger, and you'd need a larger piece of dowel or a rolling pin or something that gives you a larger size to dry it over. So I'm just going to measure this now. So I'm measuring this 1/2 centimetre. So I've just marked it, and then I'm going to follow the marks with my knife and chop it out. So I've now got a nice fine strip of my paste. A nice fine strip. So that width there is 1/2 centimetre, and I'm going to just check by cutting one out, 1.5 centimetres. Yeah, that looks about right. So 1.5 centimetres long, and you can do that all along. Okay, so once you cut out the strips of your ribbon, place it on your dowel so it forms the curve, and leave it to dry, as you can see. So they're drying. If they move, just keep pressing them down until they stay. And they'll dry a couple of days, 2-3 days, and they'll be able to use. Oops, if they fall off, not to worry. Now, at the end of the ribbons, if you have a continual line of ribbons, then you're fine. But what you can't do is do some ribbon and then stop, because what will happen here look like it's not finished. So you can imagine the ribbon. I'll show you again the board. So if you come to a stop, you could finish it with a bow, or you could finish it with a button. So a button's nice and easy. Just roll a piece of paste in proportion with your ribbon, flatten it down, and then 2 little holes to represent the buttonholes. Okay. And to make a bow, all you need to do is to cut out 2 rugby ball shapes, that sort of shape, and you can put one on there so you get the same size, because they do need to be the same size. And just fold it over, paintbrush, use a little bit of water on my brush just to close up that, and then just leave it there to dry. So hopefully I'll show you this one without dropping it. So you just take it over, just a bit of a pinch so it dry, it stops, and take it off. So there's your 2 loops. You need 2 tails, so 2 V shape, and then cut an inverted V into there. There are cutters you can buy to make a ribbon. If you're doing a lot of ribbons, then bows, then yes, the cutter's worth it, but for the odd one or two, it's not worth it at all. And then just a small ball of paste, and that can go in the middle when it's dry. So that's all ready now, and I'll leave that to dry for a few days before showing you how to assemble it. So I've sorted out my pieces of ribbon insertion, but what I'd recommend that if you're going to as you're putting it on your cake, cover some of your board or your cake up, because this needs to be done while the sugar paste is soft. We can't leave it to dry because we're going to take the ribbon insertion and we're going to gently push it into the sugar paste. Now we're not going to press it down with our finger because it will break, just gently so you can still see that rise. Now to measure, I'm going to use one of my pieces to measure, so I've put that, as you can see, quite close to it. I'm then going to put the next one quite close to that, and that one I've just put on, I'm going to press down, taking away that middle one. And I can do this with a ruler, but you know, it's quite easy using a piece of ribbon insertion as a guide. So I've got a ribbon insertion, a gap, a ribbon insertion, a gap. So it gives the impression of it going up and underneath, up and underneath, up and underneath. So if you can see which way these are placed on the board, that's the way the ribbon would go. What you wouldn't do, you wouldn't place it that way, because if you place it that way, you would need to go up, so it gives you the impression of going up and down. So I'm just going to put the ribbon insertion around some of this board to show you. So this is my measuring tool, and then I'm putting my next one in. Gently press it in. And you shouldn't need anything to stick the ribbon to the sugar paste. It should stick to the sugar paste quite easily, because I suppose it's always the first time. So a little bit of royal icing will hold it. So gently push it in, and instead of pushing it down with your finger, take the ribbon down with your finger, take the ribbon insertion each side and push it in that way. Less chance of it breaking. And I can work around the board. Okay, so as much ribbon as you want. Now if you was going all the way around without a break, that's fine. You don't need to end your ribbon. But because my ribbon insertion is only going from there to there, I need to end it either with the button or the bow. And these do need to be attached with royal icing. So just placing them on. Small ball in the middle. Now that's, oops, it doesn't want to stay, but a little bit of royal icing will help it stay. So I'm going to show you this one, because if I did that one I'll put before that. So you can see my button, and you can see the bow. Okay. And that looks really lovely technique on a cake. And as you can see, it doesn't take a lot of time. So it's quite a quick technique to do, but very effective.